Hello. For those of you that don't know, my name is Jenna and I am the face, if you will, behind Jumps Fitness. And I thought that it would be helpful if I created a video on how to maintain and care for your boots, especially since I've had a lot of new faces lately, which I'm loving. And then also maybe my seasoned jumpers might need a refresh on the information, or they just are here to admire my fantastic video making skills. We'll never really be sure. Anyway, before I get started, I want to say I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert when it comes to Kangoo Jumps boots, but I've had a lot of experience with them and I thought that it would be good for me to share my knowledge. There's lots more info out there and I can point you in the direction of more if you need it, but here are some basics on caring for your boots. So one of the main things you really want to make sure you're replacing frequently is your bands. Your bands are right here in between your two shells, and replacing these will keep your shells lasting a lot longer. And shells are relatively expensive to replace. And in general, as you know, these are a small investment, so it's important to take care of them so they last as long as possible. Ways to know that you need to replace your bands are, well, first off, think about the amount of hours you're putting on them. The kind of average or approximate time is 60 to 80 hours. So if you're jumping in class and then you're jumping outside of class, you really need to factor that in. Also, it's going to be hard to see on the video, but if you look on the top of your boot, there is a dot on the band and there's a dot on the shell. And if that dot is not showing up, if it's covered up by your band, it's like disappearing even partway, that is your warning sign that you really need to get these replaced so that you're keeping your shells nice. It's maybe a little bit easier to see that too when your body weight is in them. It just really depends on how bad they need to be replaced. Cough, cough, Jenny, who I was just holding her boots and the dot was completely gone. So I love you, Jenny. That being said, another way to know is if when you're walking in them, something that I have personally noticed is that your bands, they almost like vibrate, sort of. I don't really know how to explain it otherwise, but if you're wearing them and you can kind of feel a slight vibration, it's probably because your bands are super stretched out. So that's a way to know that they also need replacing. So the hours, the little dot, and if you feel some vibration, that's kind of like your way to know if it's time. Also, I'm happy to help you if you show me or you're still not sure. No big deal. Other care tips. When you're taking your boot off, it's so important that you are pulling the strap fully out of the buckle. That way you're not putting extra stress on the buckles that you don't want to put on there. So also something I personally like to do is if I'm putting them on and they are not going, like they're this being stubborn, not wanting to clip down all the way, I will push it down with it looser and then I'll push from the other side with my thumb. It's much easier to do while these are on your feet, but push them tighter that way so that I'm not slamming on my buckle. There are sprays that you can put on there, like if it needs, like if it's getting stuck, like lubrication type sprays, but I personally haven't had problems with them not shutting. I just push from the opposite side after it's already clipped in there. Once again, I can help you if there's a question with that. Something else. Your liners will get a little funky if you don't periodically take them out and wash them. Actually, sometimes I like to even, if I don't have time to wash them, if it's a nice day out, I'll just put them in the sun and let them get nice and dried out and good. Sometimes maybe a little Febreze. Anyways, and they can be washed as long as I do a cold cycle and I do a gentle cycle. That's what I do personally. That's what's worked for me. And they can sit out and dry, and it really doesn't take that much time for them to dry. So if you have like a day or two between using them, you should be good to go that way. Also, if you have a bag, I would not keep the bag closed wherever you're storing them. So mine, I keep my boots in my entry closet, and I always leave my bag open. So right when I get home, before I put them away, I open the bag up. And as long as you're doing this so that the moisture and the funk isn't getting trapped in there, they usually stay pretty good for quite a while. But it doesn't hurt to take them out and let them air out good and wash them periodically. So don't wash them too much just because you don't want to wear them out. But it is good to wash them every now and then. Also, it is a good idea not to store your boots inside of your car just because of the extreme temperatures, especially if you live here in Michigan and one day it's hot, next day it's cold. It's really not good for them. Or like if it's a super hot day and they're just baking in your car, or the opposite of that when it's freezing, and if you go to use them, it can be super hard on your boots. So if you can avoid it, don't store them in your car. If they have to live in your car for an hour or a part of your day, fine, but try to avoid keeping them in your car if possible. One last thing I would like to go over, and that is if you replace your shells for any reason, it's a really good idea to check and make sure using an Allen wrench that you have nice tight bolts. So you have 2 bolts here, they're pretty good size, trying to get it in the camera so you can see. But those bolts will become loose if you replace this top shell, and you don't want it to be loose for obvious reasons. It's going to cause damage to other parts of your boot. And ways to know if it's loose is you can hold on to your top and bottom, and this will actually wiggle back and forth if it's loose. Also, often when it's happened to me, when they become loose, you can hear it when you walk. It kind of makes a little like jangle noise. So super important to pay attention to those so that you're keeping your shell nice and not broken. And if you made it this far, thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope that I didn't forget anything. I'm sure that I did. If you have any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to ask. And if you are due for some sort of parts, just let me know and I am happy to help you out with that as well. Catch you later, guys. See you at class.